Hey little Lolo, coming back down to earth here, and in the world of streaming, your career is never solidified. There is always something that you can do or say that would get you shunned from the existence of the internet. But as showcased in a lot of the examples I have here today, ladies and gentlemen, somehow your past will always come back to haunt you. It is something that no matter how far you run or how high you climb the ladder of eternal bliss, it is something that you will inevitably have to face, right? And although there are some examples out there that have faced backlash undeservingly in the world of content creation, I am mostly going to touch on the streamers who have immorally done something wrong and after their cancellation have not been able to recover and or left the face of the universe of the internet entirely. So with that said, let's get into it, right? With streamers who have been canceled. Now first on the list, fellas, is Fedmeister.
Fed is no longer a part of OTV and he has left the house and he's been gone for a couple days. This is because of allegations against him.
Now, who remembers this guy who was a part of the offline TV organization as a core member and who established his brand as basically being the Wizard of Oz, where there has been numerous clips out there where he is, just trying to spit game at his colleagues and or friends.
You can clearly tell you have a big... Okay, I'll just stop here. Anyways, you got my point. You can clearly tell you're thick, is what I'm saying.
But I mean, this was just a Fed thing, as they would say.
It was kind of normalized as a Fed thing to do. He just would come into your room and he just chill in your bed on his phone or anything, and it felt super casual.
Till Fedmeister would take things just a bit too far, where his actions and continuous manipulation was irreversible. Now, when the whole Me Too movement was escalating in the streaming side of the internet, where women felt safe enough to call out their abusers and provide their statement of their story, Yvonne, otherwise known by her Twitch name Yvonne, and who was also an org member of Offline TV, wrote a twitlonger on June 28th about her friend slash co-worker Fedmeister, which took streamers by surprise, because in this twitlonger she wrote, in which I'll summarize, that her and Fed were very close friends and that he would often hang in a room where they would often fall asleep, but in a very friendly and consensual way, until it wasn't. Where one night he came into her room drunk and started to hold her hand and kiss it, which made her feel very uncomfortable, because not only did she have a boyfriend at the time, but because Fed was her friend. And to make matters worse, he started to go up her shirt right near her chest, where he eventually retracted, turned away, and then 10 minutes later acted like he didn't even know how he got there and left. And the next day she brought it up to him that, hey, did you remember anything that happened last night? Where he responded that he did not, and where she decided to leave it as it was because he was intoxicated and, she didn't want to make it awkward between them. Until a few weeks later, he came back into her room drunk again, apologizing about what happened the other night, which implies that he did in fact remember. And then before he leaves again, he kisses her hand again, causing her to feel very uncomfortable and confused. Now, the only person that she felt comfortable enough telling was a very close friend of hers and her boyfriend at the time, where she then started to build distance from Fed and where she would bury herself into addiction with a game called League of Legends, probably one of the worst games to actually bury yourself into addiction with, and where Yvonne tried to minimize the situation entirely for the sake of the organization, but realized that at the end of the day, Fed was truly never apologetic, but more worried about whether this was going to affect his status and position in the hierarchy that they built in the streaming scene. Now, Yvonne, with Lily Pichu's permission, who is another organization member of Offline TV, opened up about her experience with Fedmeister, where Lily Pichu noted that after her breakup with her ex-boyfriend, felt as if Fed was taking advantage of that situation and her very vulnerable state, where he would massage her feet and even start going up her thigh, and even admitting that he liked her, causing her to feel very uncomfortable because once again they were just friends. So this would eventually backfire on Fed, where one day all the girls that were a part of that friend group would gather together and somehow manage to share their own story about Fed's behavior and his manipulation that would actually cause some unnecessary tension between them and start to separate the friend groups from one another.
It was like, oh, Fed's over. Stuff with Pokey or OTV is like not good right now. Like that was it. He would run away. He would run away constantly, and then while he's there, he's like just spreading bad vibes about OTV, which would slowly start to push us away from them. I'd start to have these really negative thoughts about Pokey.
So this would eventually lead to an intervention with Fedmeister, where each one of the girls would provide their stories on the matter, which would then result in a very emotional response for everybody involved, where Fedmeister actually seemed apologetic and said that he would change his behavior. And I'm assuming that for a small time frame there was peaceful bliss among the OTV and Friends group until Fed started to revert back to his old ways and once again only cared about his own personal agenda and desires, which is where Ivani felt comfortable to finally come out with this twitlonger. Now this would open up Pandora's box for him, and this would eventually lead Pokimane, who at the time publicly actually seemed to be really close friends with Fedmeister and even flirted with the shipping rumors that were initially made about them in the early years of OTV, where she would come out with her own statement stating that a man that she felt that she could trust would eventually come out to be very manipulative and even lie to a person that she was talking to that her and Fed were dating.
Really busy, and I was like, me busy? Like, you and Fed were, you know, two peas in a pod all night. And he goes, oh yeah, like, what's going on with you guys? And I was like, what do you mean, what's going on? And the guy informed me that Fed told him that we were together when we weren't, and that he told the guy not to tell anyone, not to talk to anyone about it, not to talk to me about it.
Which is honestly some Charles Manson type shit, you know? This is like S tier, deep in the friend zone type shit, where he's trying to metaphorically put a chastity belt on her. It's kind of cringe. Granted, did they have anything going on prior to this? Fed would then reveal these texts that would provide some sort of evidence and proof that they did in fact have something going on, but because this video is called Streamers Who Were Cancelled, we're not gonna dive too deep into that. Only thing I will say about that is that Pokimane denied these allegations, and that's all that matters for this video. Anyways, Pokimane would then reveal that Fedmeister would actually talk shit behind Yvonne's back, saying that she didn't contribute anything to the organization and that all she did was play League of Legends, you know, kind of building resentment and tension between these two individuals as a manipulative tactic, so that rather than confront each other in the future about Fed's behavior, he instead puts them against each other so that they don't ever have the ability to engage in an actual conversation that would eventually lead to his demise.
He would talk to me about how Yvonne was lazy and not working enough and playing League all the time. And I was concerned. And he would say, oh, she like won't work on OTV stuff with me or brainstorm and blah, blah, blah. And this discussion got to the point of us almost letting Yvonne go from the company.
So I mean, by painting Yvonne as a bad person and, you know, trying to get her fired, not only is he depriving her of her validation, but he is doing so because he does not want to lose his position in the organization, right? Because he's scared that she might eventually come out and say something about what happened that night. So what he is trying to do is shine this negative light onto her so that they can choose him over her. Now, this was a reoccurring theme from Fedmeister. At the end of the day, it seemed that all he cared about deep within his unconscious psyche was his status, his ego, and, you know, he would do anything to maintain it. Now, a year later from this incident, he actually did make an attempt to come back, where all he really did was steroids. I mean, come on, let's be honest here. But the damage had been done. He was no longer as big as he once was, and it's safe to say that this entire situation really did affect his career. Rip Bozo. Anyways, next up is going to be a back-to-back where one of these situations eventually led to the other, where 3 streamers were almost canceled in a span of 2 weeks. Now, one of these streamers managed to revive themselves back from the dead, but trust me, it costed him half of his subs, a 6-month investigation, him losing a lot of his streamer connections, and even to this day, he is still being affected by the situation. Now, who am I talking about, ladies and gentlemen? I am talking about Slicker, Crazy Slick, and Miskiff, who all had a very terrible September last year, let me tell you, where 2 out of 3 other streamers that I mentioned basically have been shunned from the existence of the internet. Now, how did this domino effect happen? Well, it all started because of Twitch gambling. Well, kind of, right? Because although Twitch was promoting slots and gambling to their audiences with big streamers like Trainwrecks, XQC, and Aiden Ross, who all had massive deals with stake, the situation I'm about to talk about actually had nothing to do with gambling that was going on Twitch. In fact, it had to do with sports betting, where the streamer Slicker would borrow or steal $300,000 worth of money so that he can use for sports betting.
It's gonna come, bro.
Where he would ask random streamers or even his own fans that he was going through a little bit of a rough patch and that if he could borrow $5,000 or any amount that they could afford, and that he would eventually pay them back.
I hope you don't hate me on this. It's so cringe, and I'm cringe for asking my brother. Please do not hate me. Please, keep it personal as well. Basically, my bank account got locked. This has happened for like 3-4 days. I've been asking around people. Sadly, today, well, tomorrow is the last day until my credit starts getting fucked up. It got locked out, and I was looking for people that actually work and that I could ask if I could borrow from, and I'll pay back. Genuinely, give me 2 months and I can pay back.
Now, he did this for a period of 2 years where he would actually accumulate $300,000 worth of money from, streamers and viewers, who some I do believe at some point had to start catching on to his shenanigans because word gets around, which is where this infamous clip of him begging surfaced. Now, streamers Miskiff, XUC, and Ludwig all decided that they would pay off his debt, but this would eventually lead to the end of Slicker's career because of the amount of respect that he lost from the streaming community. Now, although Slicker is gone, he will be seen as a meme in the streaming community for years to come, and also was the ultimate reason for Miskiff's downfall. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, the dominoes started to fall, my friends, and although this had nothing to do with the gambling that had to do on Twitch, because once again, this was sports betting, Miskiff, Pokemon, Hassan, Ludwig, and I would even say Asmongold all had their input on the gambling issue on Twitch after the Slicker situation that had gained massive amount of momentum from audiences all around, where Twitch would ultimately make the decision to ban stake from their website, which is where these big streamers were making millions of dollars. This would then lead Trainwrecks to tweet at Asmongold and Twitch saying, because your pals decided it was in their best interest to use and platform the very person that scammed everyone for his horse racing and tennis bets to somehow twist it and wager the war against me. And we both know deep down why the insecure little man is doing this, which he is referring to Miskiff. Where Miz responded, which if the Miskids had a time machine, I'm pretty sure they would go back in time and turn off his computer, because the next tweets would change the trajectory of his career as we currently know it. Where he said, if we're going to deplatform people for scamming others, shouldn't we have banned you for Joltcoin a few years back? Where Trainwrecks claps back with, are you going to send Maya and Mitch to railroad and blackmail me like you did those girls to cover up all those sexual assaults, you fucking scumbag, piece of shit? You want to come at me and make shit up? Then you better be sure you don't live in a glass house, you insecure pussy. Now this would resurface an entire scandal that Miskiff's close friend at the time, Crazy Slick, was the accuser of, where the streamer Adriana Lee had accused him of overstepping her boundaries one night at a party, and when she was blacked out drunk on the bed, and her friends had said that they had seen Crazy Slick touching on her neck and her chest, where they would tell him to stop multiple times. Now, she stated that he did not sexually assault her nor rape her, but as the whole drama revived itself from the dead, she would then change her mind and say that he actually did sexually assault her.
What is assault defined? He did not me. He did not stick a finger on me or whatever, but he did try to touch my chest. He touched my chest multiple times when he was asked to stop. Multiple times. He kept insisting multiple times to do that.
And to top this off, come to find out, as indicated by Trainwreck's tweet, that Miskiff, Maya, and Miss Jones actually made the decision to go to her house to try and communicate to her about the situation in 2021 before the twit longer even happened, and where people speculated that they were doing so in order to manipulate her verdict and change her mind about what really happened. Now, from what Crazy Slick had told them, he had indicated that all he was trying to do was check her pulse and to see if she was still breathing. Now, being in Miskiff's position, when you hear that from your best friend, you would assume that he was telling you the truth, because why would somebody that close to you lie to you? So he would ask Maya, his girlfriend at the time, to go over to Adriana Lee's house and, to go talk to her, where he wanted to stay back because he didn't want his influence to affect her decision on what really happened. And they decided that they would send Miss Jones over as well, even though he really didn't have any sort of contribution to the conversation at all. This entire situation would sway the jurors, being cancel culture, to the side of the abuser, and would paint Miskiff, Crazy Slick, and even Maya Higa in a very bad light, especially since more evidence began to arise, where you can see in this clip of Miskiff downplaying the sexual assault like it was in some sort of tier list.
Of what you can deem of it, it's sexual harassment, whatever. At a low scale, it's not really a big deal. I don't think people really gave a shit and really cared. I'm gonna turn this off if you're gonna be like this. I'll just.
And even some more evidence of Crazy Slick's creepy ass behavior towards women started to arise during this entire situation, where there was a multitude of Discord logs of him being extremely bizarre and overstepping his boundaries on multiple occasions, and even using Miskiff's Twitch profile to try to spit game at the streamer.
It was 4 o'clock in the morning when I was playing Minecraft, and Slick was on Miskiff's account.
So this entire situation actually set back both Miskiff and even Maya Higa in September of 2022, where both of these streamers took long hiatuses from streaming, where Maya Higa actually, because of this situation, no longer does collaboration streams except with Cutie Cinderella, and it's only focused on the brand of her non-profit organization, Avea Sanctuary. This, as I've said, literally changed the trajectory of streamers' lives. Because when Miskiff returned to streaming, not only was his best friend Crazy Slick no longer living in the house and had been shunned from the entire friend group and streaming in general, because I mean, even if we take a look at his profiles, he is nowhere to be found, although there was a subtle hint at him joining Kick. He seemed to have disappeared from the face of the platform entirely.
Someone asked about Slick. Slick's fucking gone. I know people probably assume that Slick's not. Slick's fucking gone, and I am very glad that piece of shit is out of my house.
Now, Miskiff has had a very rocky year trying to get back to his original rank, and even to this day suffers some backlash among his peers, who seemingly have dismissed him entirely because of him being a brand risk for them. Just imagine in Valorant being Radiant and then all of a sudden dropping to Bronze. That was how bad Miskiff had fallen off at this point. Because not only did he have like this cringe comeback stream where his chat would have to play Pokemon by commanding the moves, which was really difficult to do because then you would have other trolls commanding the movements of the character as well, just trolling and bullshitting. causing it to be an entire disaster. But he also titled the stream "Win Me Back," which at the time was not something I feel like he should have been confident in saying, especially being in the position that he was in. Regardless, despite this, he was under investigation by his organization, where he was on strict probation, where if they found any evidence at all of him covering up the sexual assault case, then he would get kicked out of OTK. And to top this off, he actually lost a lot of his viewership and his subscribers, which at the time before he was canceled was like 25k and up, where this year today currently is around 9k. That's a massive drop off. Now granted, that's a lot of subscribers, but going from that number to that number within a year is like 100% decrease. It's like his stocks just went all the way down like phase. So he was cleared from the investigation, which concludes that he wasn't making any attempts to cover up any sexual assault, and or was aware of the creep that was behind the mask of his friend Crazy Slick all along. But there was definitely permanent damage that had happened because of these dominoes, and it all started because of sports betting. Now, next up on the list, ladies and gentlemen, is a man whose entire career changed in a matter of seconds on stream. 1 second he's good, and the next he's exposed himself of deep fakes on the internet of his fellow colleagues. Atrioc. We all have our weird sexual things, right? Some people like feet, but granted, what Atrioc did was a lot weirder, because for those of you who don't know what deepfakes are, they are basically these AI generated images of famous people, streamers, and I guess anybody you could get your hands on as long as you have their face and put it over a porn star's body. And to top that off, Atrioc personally went searching for these images and even had to go through a paywall to look at the explicit content that would have streamers like Pokimane, Cutie Cinderella, and even Maya Higa. Now, to want to see fake images of women who didn't even consent to these pictures or videos and are being exploited sexually is a strange deviancy. Now, as I've said, this all happened in a matter of seconds on stream, where he would hover over to his other monitor, exposing his recent searches or tabs that were already up to the rest of his stream for a split second.
The syndicate took a serious blow.
What time is it where I am? What time is it?
Now, somebody had to have went to the vault to screenshot the image that would then be leaked the next day, where Atrioc basically opened the floodgates, because he's the one that brought this website to the attention of other incels and basement dwellers around the internet, where they then decided to harass the content creators that were on this deepfake website, including Cutie Cinderella, where she decided to go live and express her emotions.
I want to go live because this is what pain looks like. This is what it looks like. Okay?
Now, this was a tough situation for Ludwig, because not only was Atrioc his business partner, but he was also a close friend of his, where he had to make a decision to cut him off, because as he said in his statement about Atrioc in his Mocha Mel video, that one fuck up was enough to end a career, and that he hopes he takes the steps and actions to make it better.
I don't want to be a defender of Atrioc. I think he fucked up. But sometimes that's enough. One fuck up is enough. And I just hope from here he just takes all the steps and all the actions, to make it better.
Now, eventually, Atrioc would go live with his wife behind him, where he would apologize. After about 3 minutes and 35 seconds of crying, he would actually start talking, where he once again would apologize about the entire situation and said that he accidentally clicked on a Pornhub link that sent him to this deepfake website, which I believe is cap, but I mean, hey,
It's still so embarrassing to me. But I was on fucking Pornhub, dude. I was on a fucking regular ass normal fucking website, and there was an ad There's an ad on every fucking video for this fucking. So I know other people must be clicking it because it's on every fucking video for fucking deepfake thing. And then I click it and I'm fucking in this fucking rabbit hole. And at 2 a.m. I don't know. I got morbidly curious and I click something. And I it's just fucking, it's gross. It's gross and I'm sorry. I really am. I really fucking am.
Eventually, he came out with a tweet longer where he stated that he was going to make a valiant effort to try and take down deep fake images off the internet, and even was able to take down the website that he was exposed for being on, and that he was going to take time away from streaming and content creation to make this his primary goal. Now, in July 17th, 2023, about 2 months ago, he actually was able to move about 193,000 pieces of deepfake content from the internet with a budget of $122,000, which honestly is quite commendable. Now, although Atrioc has not been streaming and has still been away from content creation, at least his actions have showcased that he is in fact truly sorry. Now, last on the list, ladies and gentlemen, sorry this video has been a long one, but I hope some of you guys are still here for the ride. Last on the list of streamers who have been cancelled is Rich Campbell. Now, Rich Campbell in late 2022 was escalating to new heights that he hadn't even seen before in his streaming career. He was dating a well-known porn star, Mia Malkova. He had a podcast with his fellow colleagues and was even receiving a higher viewership per stream. Now, this was all about to change in a matter of hours. This woman wrote a tweet longer about Rich Campbell where she felt as if she was only being used for sexual gratification by him, and that one day he invited her over for a movie in a theater that was at his apartment complex, where she made it known that she did not want to engage in any sexual activity with him. Now, after the movie, he told her that she had to go upstairs because that was the apartment rules, but she felt like he wasn't going to respect her boundaries, but he insisted that he would. Now, once they got to the apartment, he would proceed to tell her that he wanted to get her pregnant, and then started to jerk off in front of her like he was cosplaying as Louis C.K. or something, I don't know, where he then rolled her over, put it inside her, finished unprotected, and kicked her out of his apartment with nowhere to go. This was the last time she ever spoke to Rich Campbell. Now, very rarely do we ever get a live reaction of someone realizing that they are being cancelled, but with Rich Campbell, he was actually commentating on a WoW event where we could see here his mouth gaped open and visibly stressed like he left a pizza in the oven.
Because, I mean, there might be another wall, but a Razageth Vantis rune.
Now, this was unfortunate news for his colleagues, especially with the year that they were having with Miskiff. This just wasn't their year. It was like Chicago Bulls trying to play without Michael Jordan when he left for baseball in 1994. Once this news broke out, Rich came out with his own statement on Twitter where he said that he would share his own side of the story and that he would resign from OTK. But there was no follow-up, and this was the last time the world of streaming has heard from Rich Campbell. Anyways, thanks for watching. That's all from me. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm off to another dimension. See ya.